Hi guys. Let's see. Today I want to go over just maybe we're going to back up a little bit. Miss Barton tells me you guys are struggling with some concepts, and from the surveys you guys did, I could see that there's some key things that you're still missing on, and that's fine. Let me reiterate. The quiz that you guys took, it is formative. It's for this purpose, so I can see what you're struggling with and try to reteach and try to get you better understanding of. And that's especially important in the situation that we're in right now where I'm not there with you. On that note, I do have good news. I got my passport back today with my visa. So I haven't quite rebooked a flight yet, but I think I'll be there sometime maybe middle or late of next week. So we can put all this behind us and hopefully clarify any problems you guys are still having. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. So, okay, let's go back. Let's talk about just kind of the big idea in economics. And a few of you, I made comments. I won't name any names, but a few of you, I made a comment like, hey, you have to remember this isn't a business class. This is a class that is about human decision making. Yes, that's very important for businesses, but a lot of economic principles we see outside of the business world. Again, I like to make this comparison. Do you need to know economics to be a good business person? Yes, certainly. Just like if you're a doctor, you need to know biology. Does studying biology make you a good doctor? No. No, there's a lot more to being a doctor than simply understanding biology. So economics is that way, sure, for business, but it's that way for a lot of other things. It's much more, of course, about maybe even psychology, about how people think, than it is anything else. So when I talk to you guys about thinking economically, that's really what I'm trying to get you to, is to understand, hey, we're looking at how people are making a choice. So we do some weird things. The reason we do some weird things, like use math and use a model, is for this right here. It can take an argument and reduce it down to what the argument is really about. I don't mean an argument like two people fighting, I mean a point of view. So it can get rid of all these other issues that might complicate something. And again, when we're talking about things that are real, when we're talking about people and decisions, there's a lot of things that are out there to complicate them. So in economics, we try to get rid of all those things, or as many as we can, to distill it down to one issue. Now we might, if we're looking at, I don't know, I guess an economic issue like, what product to produce, I might get rid of all the issues to figure out which one is most profitable as far as you can sell it for the highest, but then I might get rid of everything else to figure out which one costs the least. So it's just this process of getting rid of everything but the one thing I'm looking at. Am I looking at cost? Am I looking at revenue? Am I looking at environmental safety? Am I looking at job security? Am I looking at workers' rights? Anything like that. The point is, we can't study all of those together. It's far too confusing. So we have to decide about one thing, get it down to one thing, and figure out what's best in that area. Then we go back and look at another thing, and then start to compare things and put them together. Okay, so with math and models, we can reduce an argument to its basis. We can clarify a comparison and an outcome. We can say, well, sure, these things are all going on. So for example, right now I'm shopping for flights. So obviously, time frame is a big part of that. The amount of time I'm going to travel is a part of that. Cost is a part of that. I suppose the niceness of the airline is a part of that. But if I try to think about all those things together, it's too confusing. So if I can look at one thing at a time, it's going to make my comparisons a lot easier, or it's going to make the outcome of a decision much more clear. Conclusions are easier. It's easier to come to a conclusion if we have simple things to compare. If I have a number, if I'm using math and I've decided that lowest is best, well then, whatever number is lowest is the easiest conclusion to come up with. If I'm looking at a model and I'm deciding, well, I want, my outcome to look most like this, well again, the model makes it clear, well, this is the outcome that's going to be closest to what my desire is. One thing we always have to remember, and this is the giant caveat, a lot of times people will be like, oh, aha, but economics is wrong because that assumption is wrong. Yeah, that's the whole point. We understand that our math and our models, they're only as good as the assumption you make. So obviously if you make a poor assumption, if I assume that, right now we're looking at scarcity, resource scarcity, my assumption is that it's bad that we don't have enough resources for everything we want. Well, I think that's a pretty good assumption. But if you don't agree with that assumption, if you think it's good that there's not enough resources, well then all of a sudden everything we talk about kind of goes out the window. So we always have to remember, yes, we are making assumptions, but they're pretty easy to make assumptions. When we get into demand and supply, which isn't now, demand and supply doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about here. When we get into that, our number one assumption is people will buy more when the price is less. That's a pretty easy assumption to make. Is it always true? No, but that's a story for a different day. Okay, so when we look at opportunity cost, a few things to remember. The definition, many of you forgot this word in your definition. You have to think about a choice. You have a choice to make. When you make a choice, you give up the ability to do the other thing. Now you gave it up because you thought the choice you made was better. If I fly on United Airlines, it's because I think United Airlines is better than American Airlines. I think any airline that isn't an American airline is probably better than any American airline, but again, that's a story for a different day. So, if I choose to fly on Lufthansa, it's because I think Lufthansa is a better airline than United. That means I can't fly on United if I fly on Lufthansa. So yes, I gave up the ability to fly on United, but that's okay. I feel good about that. I feel like that's to my advantage. The assumption we make, this ceteris paribus assumption, is saying everything else is equal. So I guess if we go back to airlines, if I assume that two airlines are the exact same, the TV, that's a big one for me. I don't sleep well on planes, so I've got to have good entertainment. The TV, the leg room, the quality of the flight attendants, the time of the flight, when the flight takes off. If I assume all those things are the same, and the only thing that I actually care about is when the flight arrives, if I assume that arriving, in Johannesburg sooner is better, well, if everything else is the same, then obviously I'm just going to make my choice based on the one thing, and I can figure that out very easily when we arrive. But then I might have to go back and say, well, these two arrive similarly. Maybe one arrives Monday at 4 o'clock and the other one arrives Monday at 5 o'clock. Well, in my mind, those aren't that different from each other. I don't really care either way. So then maybe I'm going to make the assumption, well, this flight I have a 6-hour layover, and that flight I have a 4-hour layover. So I think the 4-hour layover is better, so I'm going to choose that flight. So when we say ceteris paribus, we have to say everything else is the same. I can't think about layover time and arrival time together and make a very clear decision. I have to think about one over the other. So if I'm comparing two flights, again, to go back to what I've said, if I'm comparing two flights, I go, okay, well, sooner is better. So 4 o'clock is better than 5 o'clock. And then I go, okay, well, what about quality of the flight? Okay, so I'm not going to care about arrival time anymore, but I decide, well, the entertainment on Lufthansa is better than the entertainment on United. Okay, so that's a point for Lufthansa. Back and forth and back and forth. So by doing this, you go through your decision-making process, and again, go back. I'm not doing this right now. When I go through and I'm making a choice for my airline, I'm not actually doing what I'm describing. Economics is about trying to describe what is going on in my head as I make a decision. So I'm going to make the decision based on all those factors together. Economics is studying how I made the decision. Okay? Alright. Mathematical expressions are useful when we're looking at giving up one thing over the other. Remember, giving up less is more efficient. If I give the least I give up, if we have limited resources, scarcity, then giving up less of those limited resources is a good thing. So mathematical expressions are useful here. That's why we use math. So if my benefit is a car, I'm going to buy a car. Well, if my benefit is the same no matter what, and 4 different people want to sell me the exact same car, okay, the quality, everything is the exact same, ceteris paribus. If 4 people want to sell me the exact same car, so the benefit to me is the same, well then obviously whatever price is lowest is what I ought to go with. There's no reason for me to pay $17,000 for the exact same car, ceteris paribus, as instead of $14,000. Clearly, I have scarce amount of money. I don't have all the money in the world. I don't have infinite resources. So, I would rather have the car and the extra $3,000 by choosing $14,000 instead of $17,000. This is real easy when we look at dollars, and it makes a lot of sense. And you guys are like, well, of course. We have to understand that dollar cost, right? Dollar cost, euro cost, rand cost, whatever you want to call it, is no different than opportunity cost. Okay? And this is one of our key tools in economics that we talk about all the time. So in your mind, whenever you see opportunity cost, just make it a dollar sign, make it a euro sign, a pound, whatever you want. And you've got to think about it as, well, it's an actual cost just like anything else. Okay, I decided instead of using swimmers again, or people, maybe that's part of what was confusing you, I don't know, we're going to look at a different factor of production. Now, by the way, I understand you guys weren't super happy with your quiz results, but to be honest, when you can't define a term like land, that's a problem. Okay, that's got nothing to do with much. There's about, 400 resources out there where you could find the definition of land. Okay, so some of that, you guys need to just go memorize things. Okay, but anyway, how can we use scarce factors of production more efficiently? Okay, so today we're going to look at land. So let's assume we have 1 hectare of land, and on that 1 hectare of land, we can grow 40 kilos of carrots, or we can grow 20 kilos of rocket, or some combination thereof. Okay? We can't grow more than 40 kilos of carrots. We can't grow more than 20 kilos of rocket. We can't grow 40 kilos and 20 kilos at the same time. This is a maximum, so this is 100%. All of the land is being used to grow carrots. We got 40 kilos. If one little square bit is used for rocket, we're not going to get 40 kilos of carrots. Okay? Likewise, if 100% of the land, all of the land, is used for rocket, then we're not going to get a single carrot. Okay? So if we grow 20 kilos of rocket, we will not have one little bitty carrot, not even a baby carrot.